Things are heating up in Toronto with GM Brad Treliving having to make a massive decision before the season starts on who's going to fill out that third line left wing position. In this video, I'm going to break down all the options he has in front of him, so you're not going to want to miss this episode of Hat Trick HQ. But before we get into it, we got to say we're on the road for 5,000 subscribers here before the end of the summer. We're almost at the end of the summer, so if you guys aren't subscribed, we really appreciate if you're enjoying our content, you want to keep up to date on everything that's happening around the NHL, make sure you're down below and hit that subscribe button. But with that said, let's get right into the first topic of the video today, the main topic of the video, which is the battle for the last wing spot. The last left wing spot is heating up in Toronto, and of course, this summer has been a crazy summer if you have been a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, because we have had so much stuff come out. We were talking about Marner trades, we're talking about Robertson trades, we got signings, everything happening in Toronto this offseason. There was so much stuff surrounding the Leafs going into this offseason, and now we're getting towards the end of that, but Brad Treliving still has to make a huge decision on who he's going to have in this last left wing position. And of course, I'm going to break down three options here that the Leafs have in front of them that, you know, could happen, or one of them is definitely going to happen before the start of the season. So the first option, of course, is the guy we talked about a lot here, Nick Robertson. Of course, Nick Robertson earlier this summer requested a trade out of Toronto. Then Brad Treliving said, hey, we don't want to trade Nick. He's a key piece of our future, and he's a key piece of our roster here in Toronto. But just a couple days ago, we got an update on that from Chris Johnston, where he went on to say here, I think obviously at this stage of the summer, the Leafs are still working through what happens with Nick Robertson, but there's a pretty clear path for him to be a part of the mix at left wing. But he also went on to say, at this stage, Nick Robertson doesn't seem inclined to sign in Toronto and is sticking to the idea that he'd play somewhere else. So it's all up in the air right now with Nick Robertson. Chris Johnston says the Leafs want him to be in the mix at that left wing position, but it seems like Nick Robertson is fed up with Toronto and wants to get out. And this is probably why we haven't seen him sign that contract yet. I'm sure there's been offers from Toronto to Nick Robertson to sign back, but it seems like he just has no intention of signing in Toronto and wants to take his talent somewhere else. I think this is obviously his decision, but it is a tough one to make if you're in the position of Nick Robertson, because you know here Brad Treliving saying we are going to include you. You aren't going to be shunned out like when you were with Sheldon Keefe last season. We want to use you in this lineup, and just Nick Robertson just, you know, he doesn't want to accept this, because I'm sure he's had those promises before and they have been broken, and the trust has been broken between the player and the organization. So he just wants out. He's done with it. He wants an opportunity to play somewhere else, and it just seems like that's where he's standing right now. But it is a very interesting situation, because I think it's one of those situations where, yes, Nick Robertson has dealt with injury and stuff early on in his career. The kid's only 22 years old. He still has a lot of time to grow and become a great NHL player. But on the other side, he could be one of those players who leaves Toronto like a Kadri, like a Kessel, and just excels. Like, he just breaks out and becomes a dominant goal scorer in the NHL. And I think this is what we're going to see with Nick Robertson if he does leave. If he does stay, in my opinion, I think that's the best case scenario, because he's a great goal scorer. We've heard Austin Matthews say he has the best shot on the team, coming from the best goal scorer on the team. So this guy is no slouch. He's a great player. They just need to get this guy back and not break the promises that he may have been promised in the past. But definitely a great option here. Would be the one that I would like to see, but there is another one here, and of course everybody knows who we're talking about here, and that is Easton Cowan, a guy who just lit up the OHL last season. We talked about him so much here, has become the top prospect for the Toronto Maple Leafs in no time. And I mean, if you missed it, we talked about it a lot here. I mean, he had a year-to-year jump where he went from 53 points in 22-23 to 96 points in 23-24. A huge jump from Easton Cowan, becoming a top star in the OHL, becoming a top prospect in the NHL in general. just by improving his game in one season. Also having a great playoffs with the London Knights as well, having 34 points. I mean, this guy is a star in the making. We've been talking about this for a long time. I think if he has a good preseason, this is where we'll see Easton Cowan step up and become that third line left wing, leaving Robertson to a trade. I think if we see Easton Cowan have big improvements here in training camp, he's looking like he can play with the big boys in the preseason, then I think, at that point, Brad Treliving will say, hey, if Nick Robertson isn't signed, we got to look at getting him out of here because we got Easton Cowan coming up who could definitely fill this role for us. And I think this is what we will see happen. I think Easton Cowan isn't going to slow down. He's obviously on having a great pace coming off last season, and he's not going to carry a 90-point pace over to the NHL with him. I'm not saying that as well, but if this guy can come in your bottom six, play on that third line, get you 30, 40 points in his rookie season, You'd love that. I mean, he would be a great addition to this roster, and he has a lot to prove. He has a chip on his shoulder. He wants to play with the Leafs. So, why don't you take a shot on him? It just makes sense for this to happen. That is another option that we could see happen. But there is one more that we seen yesterday. If you guys missed it, we are going to bring it up right now. And that is Max Pacioretty, former Montreal Canadiens captain, has been linked to the Toronto Maple Leafs. If we just take a look here from Nick Alberga, he said, sources confirm that Maple Leafs are among the teams firmly in the mix to sign veteran UFA forward Max Pacioretty. And David Pagnotta said he's hearing the same. Leafs Pacioretty, this will be a standard player contract, not a PTO. This is what we were speculating, at least I was speculating yesterday. I said, maybe they're going to bring him in on a PTO, see how he is, but hearing from Pagnotta now, an update on that is that he will sign a standard player contract if the Leafs do go after him. And obviously, if you're not familiar with Max Pacioretty, I'm sure a lot of you are from that Leafs and Habs rivalry, but this guy at 35 years old is a veteran. He's a guy who, he's a great leader. Obviously, being a captain in Montreal, has been assistant captain throughout his time in Vegas as well. Last season with the Washington Capitals, coming off 23 points in 47 games, having 4 goals, 19 assists. But as we know, Pacioretty, in the past, he has been a great all-around forward. He can get it done defensively. He can get it done by scoring goals. He can get done by his playmaking, by getting assists. He's more that all-around left wing that if the Leafs are looking to bring somebody in on a fairly cheap deal, I know I keep saying it, I see your comments down below, but they need to bring guys in on cheap deals. I mean, they got no money. So if they can get him in on at the league minimum, maybe they get him in for under $1 million. I think that would be a great contract for Max Pacioretty. I do think that even getting him in at $1 million with that, the Leafs have little wiggle room to work with. So if they see fit to bring him in and trade out Nick Robertson to alleviate that cap where they don't have to sign him back, this could be an option we could see as well. And I really do like this option. Yes, he is 35. I know a lot of you guys are going to say he's slow, he's old, he's not the same patches as he was in Montreal. But he's a guy who can come into this young team, be a locker room leader, be a guy who's been there in the playoffs, has battled through the rounds of the playoffs, and just share his experience with these guys and mentor the younger guys to, be a successful team and just shed his, leadership throughout the room. I think this will be a perfect signing for the Toronto Maple Leafs, even though as a Habs fan, seeing Pacioretty in a Leafs jersey would look really weird, like when Blagenics went to the Maple Leafs, but I do think that this is a very, very solid option that they are looking at right now. And if they see fit that, hey, maybe Cowan's not ready, maybe he needs another year in the OHL, maybe we need to get him down in the Marley system to see how he is down there. And then they say, Robertson, well, he's fed up, he's done, we got to get rid of him. Well, then the option, the only option left is Max Pacioretty. So it is a very interesting situation here in Toronto that is going to unfold over this next little while. And like I said, it is a huge decision for Brad Treliving, because if he makes the wrong decision here, then it's going to lead to repercussions, because they need to have that perfect guy on this third line left wing that is going to contribute offense down throughout the lineup in the bottom six and just be a great player for them down there. If you had to ask me right now what option I like the most, I am going to say Nick Robertson, even though it's the most unlikely situation because he doesn't want in. I think the best situation for them is for Brad to say, hey, we get you on a 1-year deal. Next year, you can leave if you want. But this year, you have a year to prove yourself. Prove that you deserve a spot in this lineup, night in and night out. Get him in on a 1-year deal, whatever it is, $1 million, $1.5 million, whatever they want to give him. I think that is the best option for the Toronto Maple Leafs because then he has something to prove. He obviously wants to prove that he belongs in the NHL. He wants to prove that he's a great goal scorer. So get this guy, give him a little bump. Say, hey, 1 year, you got to prove this. If not, you can walk, you can go to another team. I think this is the best option for Toronto because if they trade him out, they're not going to get a whole lot for him. So give him this guy a little extra to play for, a little extra edge, a little, something to go after will definitely spark his confidence and just spark his game to a whole nother level. So that's what I'm saying here. I'm going with Nick Robertson, but I want to hear your guys' thoughts down below in the comment section. What do you think? Who do you think is the best option here for Toronto? Is it Patches? Is it Cowan? Is it Robertson? Love to hear your guys' thoughts down below in the comment section. But before we end the video, we got to end it on some sad note here. Obviously, it is a devastating day for the hockey community with last night coming out, Johnny Gaudreau and his brother Matthew Gaudreau lost their life in a tragic accident. And I just want to say from everyone here on the channel that my thoughts and prayers go out to the Gaudreau family because, I mean, this guy was a great player. Johnny Hockey has provided us with so many great memories. And, I mean, at 31 years old and his brother at 29, gone too young. And we just got to give our thoughts and prayers to the Gaudreau family today. And I just want to dedicate this video to Matthew and Johnny Gaudreau.